One of the most controversial interpretations ever formed from the stories of the Bible is something known as the serpent seed theory, sometimes also called the two-seed line theory. It is an idea that traces its roots to early Gnostic writings, most notably the Gospel of Philip, a text composed sometime in the 3rd century. This rather dark and sinister idea provides an alternative explanation for the fall of man, a reading that is far from mainstream but fascinating nonetheless. Though evidence for it is limited, the very nature of the claim makes it compelling, an idea that forces us to question what we think we know about one of the most foundational stories of human history. Before diving in, let me place a quick disclaimer. This is not a theory I personally subscribe to. It is, however, one that has been proposed by Gnostic authors, later Jewish Midrashic writings, and certain American religious leaders, most notably the evangelist William M. Branham. Most Christian theologians reject it outright, considering it incompatible with Scripture. Still, it remains a provocative narrative worth examining. The core of the theory, the serpent seed idea, suggests that Cain was not the son of Adam, as commonly believed, but rather the offspring of Eve and the serpent in the Garden of Eden. According to this interpretation, Eve was seduced by the serpent. The act was not the simple eating of forbidden fruit, but something far more intimate, an act of betrayal that produced a child. That child was Cain. This immediately recasts Eve not as the passive recipient of deception, but as one who was unfaithful to Adam. Whether Adam knew of this supposed infidelity is unclear. Some Midrashic writers argued that he did not, that he raised Cain as his own, just as he did with Abel, without showing favoritism or resentment toward Eve. Evidence from behavior supporters of the serpent seed theory often point to the differences between Cain and Abel as evidence. Abel, they argue, is portrayed as selfless and pure. When offering sacrifice to God, he chooses to give up something meaningful and valuable, his best lamb. Cain, however, is depicted as selfish and calculating. He offers crops, but not the best of them, only what he does not need. In this light, Abel's sacrifice represents genuine devotion, while Cain's represents indifference. To the theorists, this contrast reveals more than personality. It is a reflection of two bloodlines, one pure, stemming from Adam, and the other corrupted, stemming from the serpent. Scriptural clues. At this point, you may ask, does Scripture give any support for this idea? The book of Genesis does not explicitly say so. In fact, it simply states that Adam and Eve had children. Yet, those who advocate the serpent seed interpretation often point to subtle wording. For example, Genesis 3:15 records God's curse upon the serpent. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. To most Christians, this is a prophecy of the coming Messiah, who would ultimately defeat evil. But in the serpent seed reading, it is taken literally. The serpent would have his own seed, a bloodline that would forever be at war with the seed of the woman. In their view, Cain represents that first seed of the serpent. Expansion through history. While this idea may have started as a Gnostic reinterpretation, it spread through certain mystical Jewish writings and was later revived in the 20th century. William Branham, an American evangelist, taught that Eve's encounter in the garden was not about fruit at all, but about intimacy with the serpent. From him came Cain, and from Cain, a corrupt bloodline that, in Branham's teaching, continues through history in opposition to the children of Adam. This idea became popular in some fringe religious circles, though it has been heavily criticized for its lack of biblical foundation and, in certain interpretations, even used in deeply troubling and discriminatory ways. Theological problems. There are, of course, significant issues with the theory. Firstly, the Bible itself consistently names Adam as the father of Cain. There is no passage that directly suggests otherwise. Secondly, mainstream Christian theology views the fall of man as a universal corruption of human nature, not the product of a single corrupted bloodline. Sin entered through Adam and Eve together, not through some supposed illegitimate child. Finally, the theory raises uncomfortable implications about Eve's role, turning her from the deceived into the unfaithful. A move many theologians argue misrepresents the text entirely. Symbolism and meaning. Yet even with these problems, the serpent seed theory endures, perhaps not as literal history, but as a symbolic lens through which to view human nature. Cain and Abel represent two paths, one of selfishness and violence, the other of humility and sacrifice. Whether or not Cain was the son of the serpent, the story illustrates the division between good and evil that continues. To define the human condition, Some even see the serpent seed narrative as an allegory that evil does not come merely from outside us, but can take root deep within, spreading like a corrupted seed that influences generations. Conclusion: in the end, the serpent seed theory remains one of the most controversial, unsettling, and thought-provoking interpretations of the Bible. While mainstream Christianity dismisses it as heretical, it lingers as a dark possibility that forces us to ask difficult questions. What if the true fall of humanity was more complex than eating forbidden fruit? What if the enemy planted a seed not just of temptation, but of blood? Whether you accept it or not, the theory serves its purpose. It makes us think more deeply about the ancient texts, their hidden meanings, and the enduring mystery of good and evil in the human story. And perhaps that, more than anything else, is why this strange and sinister idea has refused to disappear.